Hey everyone, welcome to Sheila's Kitchen, my new kitchen. If you've followed me for a while, you know that we started remodeling our kitchen before we left on our travels. So we're back home, and while I was gone, I watched a lot of sourdough making videos because I wanted some new ideas for sourdough for this summer, for the sourdough that I sell. And a new idea that I came across is the sourdough croissant loaf. So I'm going to show you, I've already got my sourdough loaf prepped. I've done 3 sets of stretch and folds. This is my 4th. I'll do a 4th and a 5th just because I have to do this in 2 parts. But first of all, I wanted to show you, I don't know if you can see that up close here. This is a new grater that I got from the TikTok shop. So it suctions to your counter, which is just awesome. It comes with 3 blades. This piece here comes apart, the little pusher thingy, whatever you want to call it, plunger. But for this recipe, you make just a standard sourdough bread recipe, and then you add to it in your stretch and folds butter. Now, I've seen people use 1 stick, I've seen people use 2 sticks. We're gonna go a stick and a half, and we're gonna just check this grater out here, see if it works for the butter. Sort of working. Oh, I guess it helps to turn it the right direction. So I think I've only used this like twice. I think I used it for carrots once right before we left. That's a cool tool right there. So with this, what you do is you use frozen butter, and it has to be frozen. And you grate it, and then you, in your stretch and folds, so like I'm on my 4th set of stretch and folds, I'll fold in half the butter, and then I'll give it like 30 minutes, and then I'll fold in the other half of the butter. And you want to keep, from what I've read and seen online, you want to keep your loaf then in its ferment stage or bulking stage, whatever, in a cooler area. And we heat with wood, and we do have our wood stove going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it kind of in our other section of our dining room, maybe closer to the window, patio door, whatever, and just kind of hope that it is cool enough over there so it doesn't melt the butter or rise too fast. So we'll see how it goes. So if you haven't done a loaf with the butter, like I'm doing, from what I've seen online, they're amazing. So like I said, I think I saw this done like when we were actually on our travels south, and I couldn't wait to get home and give it a try. So I'm gonna clean this out here, make sure I get all the butter out. And I don't want to rub my finger in there and potentially cut myself. So I was watching a TikTok video one day, and a girl had gotten a similar tool, and she stuck her finger in it to reach for something and literally sliced her finger wide open. So I don't want to take the chance of doing that. See how easy it comes off the counter? Get all the good butter off of there. Butter. Yummy, yummy. Let's get that in there, throw that in the sink. So here's the butter grated. And you can grate it however you want. I mean, if you've got just a standard old-fashioned grater or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But what you do is you've got your dough that's already been sitting on your counter that you've done a few stretch and folds, and I'm going to get my hand wet. So I've got the wet hand, so I'm actually going to put in about half of this butter, and then the other half I'll stick in my freezer so it stays cold. And then you just want to do your stretch and folds like you normally would. Like I say, it is warmer in my house, so I will probably stick this in the coolest spot I can find. I might even bring it down to my basement and stick it down there, just for the fact that I think if the butter melts, it maybe changes the consistency of the dough in its final stages, so I want to make sure I follow the directions as close as possible. Normally I just kind of wing it, but everything I've seen online says to keep it in a cool spot, so get this butter all nicely incorporated in here. So while we were traveling, I did bring my starter with me, but I didn't bake anything. I just had it with me just to keep an eye on it. I just whittled it down so I had about this much in a jar. So when we came home, instead of putting it in the fridge when I was unloading the RV, I set it on the counter to warm up, and then I fed it right away. So I fed it twice, and it's been doing amazing, so I figured I'd best make some bread. All right, so there I have the first stretch and folds done, butter incorporated. I will put the lid back on here, and I think what I will do is I will run it and stick it in my basement, and I'll be back with the next set of stretch and folds. Okay, so I gave it about a half hour. I'm thinking my basement might be a little bit too cold. We don't really have a whole lot of like heat pumped through our basement. So I think what I'll do, I think the temperature said you're supposed to keep the dough at about 70 degrees. So I'll just check it after, like I'll leave it out for a little bit up here, and then I'll check the temperature, and then if it needs changing, I'll throw it in the basement. But I'm gonna wet my hand quick. And the reason you wet your hand is so the dough doesn't stick to your hand. So I'm just gonna dump in the rest of this frozen, shredded, or grated, not shredded, butter. And then just do some more stretch and folds to incorporate all the butter. So again, the reason to keep it cold is to keep the butter from melting, but I guess we'll just do what we can do with what we've got, right? So get that all nice and incorporated here. The people that I've watched make this on TikTok, and I've looked up quite a few videos, when it's done, if you like croissants, this is probably a must, because It looks so flaky and buttery. And I love croissants. I could eat them all day long. But a traditional croissant that you buy like at Walmart or your grocery store does not really agree with me. And I'm thinking it's the enriched flour, where I use bread flour that is not enriched. So I don't know what could be in the enriched flour that maybe bothers me, but there, I've done some more stretch and folds. And now I'm gonna stick the shower cap. These, by the way, are amazing. I bought like a pack of 100 of them for a few dollars. Super cheap. So there we go. So it's supposed to like sit now out on the counter for about 6 to 8 hours. I got started late today. I should have started a little bit earlier, but it is about 2:20 my time. So I'll probably wait till about 8 o'clock, and then I'll, shortly before I get ready for bed, I'll shape and put in the banneton, and then put it in the fridge overnight, and then I'll be back to bake it in the morning. So I'll maybe do the shape and fold, fold and shape, whatever, with you guys when I get ready to put it in the fridge for the night. So can't wait to give this a try tomorrow. I have a feeling I might be eating a full loaf of bread tomorrow. All right, everybody, it is about 8:15, and so this has been sitting since about around 2:30-ish or so was when I did the last stretch and fold. Got a nice rise on it. It looks nice. I kept taking the temperature and moving it from place to place, and so it stayed right between about 69 and 71 degrees, depending on where I had it in my house. So we are going to pull it out of here and put it in the banneton and put it in the refrigerator for the night. I'm just gonna flour the banneton some here. Make sure nothing sticks in there. I'll move this aside. Then what I don't need, I dump it on the counter instead of leaving it all in there. I don't put a lot on the counter anymore. I used to, but if you want to get a nice seal on it, you don't need flour on the counter. So let's see if this will pop out of here. Oh, look at that. That is perfect. Perfect, perfect. So, and I can see the butter is kind of soft, but it's not really melted. So that's good. A lot of nice bubbles in here. So again, this is the Croissant sourdough loaf, and it's a standard sourdough recipe with, I did a stick and a half of frozen butter that I grated and then did in my last 2 sets of stretch and folds. I put half the butter in one set, did my stretch and folds, and then in the last set of stretch and folds I put the other half of the butter. So we're gonna shape it. Nothing else gets added to this. Roll it on up. It is a little stickier. That could be because of the butter. I'm not really sure. This is the first time I've made this. We're gonna do the push and pulls just to seal the bottom of this. And it is gonna sit in the refrigerator overnight. I'll probably bake it maybe around 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, so about 10 hours in the refrigerator. And then I will bake it in my big cast iron crock that I have. All right. Got a nice taut bottom. I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour on the top of that just so the shower cap doesn't stick. We've got that, and I'll probably let it sit out on the counter here just for a few minutes, but I don't want it to heat up too much just because it has the butter in it. Otherwise, a lot of times with my sourdough loaves, when I do the shaping and put them in the banneton, I'll let them sit on the counter for about a half hour, and then I'll throw them in the refrigerator. So there you have it. There is the finished process pre-baking, and I will come back and do another video when I bake it tomorrow and when I cut it open so you can all see how flaky and stuff it is. So if you want the recipe, I'll just drop my standard sourdough recipe down below, or I'll put it on the screen or whatever. I'll put it somewhere so you know. And then when I bake it tomorrow, I'll put the instructions on baking and such. So if you've made this before, let me know. Let me know how yours turned out. Good morning. It's time to bake the bread. So I had the bread in the fridge all night in my banneton, just chilling. It does rise a little bit in the fridge overnight, but not really a significant amount. So we are going to use one of these nifty little creatures here and flip the bread out. Ooh, look at that. Perfectly nice shaped loaf. I'm gonna add just a touch of, this is rice flour. I think I grabbed this off of Amazon, I'm not even sure, but I don't really use a ton. Just enough so like when you score it and then it bakes, it comes out of the oven and it has that nice look to it. We're gonna use this little scoring tool. And I always do just an angled cut on the one side, kind of all the way around. Not all the way around, about halfway around. And then I just want to do some cute little slits just along the top. I don't get super fancy with my bread. And then maybe just a few on the side here. The loaves do cut or score a lot easier when they're cold right over the fridge. So we've got that. I'm gonna grab my crock out of the oven here. It's been preheating. Very, 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 very hot. I've had it preheating at 450 for close to an hour. I'm gonna bring this on over and drop it in. Put the lid back on. Now I have a big pizza pan that I throw on the bottom rack. And that just kind of helps keep the bottom, so the bottom crust doesn't burn. So with most of my loaves, I preheat at 450. You know, if I'm using the cast iron. If I'm using my enamelware pans, I don't put them in the oven to preheat. But with the cast iron, I'll preheat at 450 for anywhere between half hour to an hour. Just depends on how lazy I am, or if I've got other stuff going on. And then if the bread has no inclusions, I'll usually bake about 30 minutes, take the lid off, and then bake another 20 to 30, and I keep checking the internal temperature. But when a bread has inclusions, I'll bake for about 20 minutes, and then I'll check it just to make sure that it's rising properly, that, like, especially with things with butter, they will tend to get browner and burn quicker, or if you've got cheese in something, just because of the oils. So I do 20 minutes, I take a peek at it, I might put the lid back on for another 10, let it go, and then I'll take the lid off and go 20 to 30 minutes with the lid off until it's got a nice color and the internal temperature is around 200 to 210 degrees. So check back. All right, everybody, I took the bread out. It didn't rise quite as much as I expected it to, comparing it to like other loaves of bread that I've made. However, being that there's a lot of butter in this, maybe that stopped it from rising as much as some of my other loaves. And I've kind of veered away from making loaves that have any inclusions in them in my big cast iron pot. Mostly because the pot, I believe it's a 5-quart, is large, and so the bread tends to, instead of when it's baking, going this way and expanding, it expands this way. I do have a smaller enamel pan that I believe is like a 4-quart, it's like a 3.5 or 4-quart, that I bake a lot of my breads that have inclusions because then they tend to get taller. But nonetheless, this loaf, the bottom is super nice. That's because I put the stuff on the bottom. But I don't know if you can hear this. Like, probably not. It's super light, but, and plus we have our fan for our stove going, but it is so flaky. Like, it literally, like around here, feels like a croissant. It's got that, you know when you grab croissants, how they have that buttery flakiness that comes off on your hands? It's exactly what it feels like. Now, I'm not going to cut into it because I took it out of the oven like 10 minutes ago. I'm going to give it about a half hour to cool, and then I'm cutting into it because I just can't wait. So I will be back when I cut into it, so don't go anywhere. Guess what time it is? Oh, I said that, my little dog was like, oh, not that time, Boyka. Here he comes anyways. So the bread is cooled-ish, cooled-ish, like whatever. Again, croissant, sourdough loaf. Didn't rise as much as I was hoping it would, but you know, it was the first time I'm making it. So I think tweaking of maybe the starting time in the morning and letting it rise maybe a little bit more throughout the day. We'll see what the butter ratio is in here, maybe not as much butter as what I put in it. Also baking it in the smaller pan that I have, because like I said, the 5-quart enamelware Dutch oven, the bread goes this way instead of this way when it's baking. But from what I've seen online, everybody else's looks the same. They're not super tall and stuff. So we're gonna slice into it. First of all, check out that crumb. Look at all the little bubbles. Kind of hard just to hear the goodness because our fan for our wood stove is going. So I like to cut my bread in half and then I slice it smaller after that. So flaking just like a croissant would. Oh my goodness. That looks divine. Are you ready for the crumb shot? Look at that. That is perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I'm making a mess everywhere. So let's move that one aside here. And the crust is a lot softer, obviously, because of the butter. But look at that. Flaky, flaky. Winner, winner, sourdough for dinner. That is really, really good. You can see how it flakes, sort of like a croissant. Smells so good. That is totally going on my blog. So my blog is she'strippy.com. It's a lot of travel, but then I also have a lot of recipes and stuff on there, and shopping guides and wellness tips and fitness tips and all kinds of stuff. So I have a few other sourdough recipes on there that are huge. I mean, I bring in a lot of traffic on my sourdough recipes. This will be going on there in the next week. I don't think I'm going to tweak it at all. I don't think it should have any less butter. Like I said, I have seen recipes where people use half a stick of butter all the way up to, you know, a stick and a half like I did. So I think this is a winner. All right, so freaking good. You could use this as sandwich bread. You could toast it. I will say, if you toast it, you might want to be careful because it might burn a little bit, being that it has so much butter in it. Grilled. So my blog is she'strippy.com. It's a lot of travel, but then I also have a lot of recipes and stuff on there, and shopping guides and wellness tips and fitness tips and all kinds of stuff. So I have a few other sourdough recipes on there that are huge. I mean, I bring in a lot of traffic on my sourdough recipes. This will be going on there in the next week. I don't think I'm going to tweak it at all. I don't think it should have any less butter. Like I said, I have seen recipes where people use half a stick of butter all the way up to, you know, a stick and a half like I did. So I think this is a winner. All right, so freaking good. You could use this as sandwich bread. You could toast it. I will say, if you toast it, you might want to be careful because it might burn a little bit, being that it has so much butter in it. Grilled cheese, sandwiches, or just like this. Finger looking good. So I'll be sharing the recipe on my blog soon.